Alright, so I was fortunate enough to be able to check out Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I've actually seen the game a couple times. They showed it to me about 2 months ago for initial kind of look at the game, and then about a week and a half ago they really brought us in and showed us kind of the whole shebang. And I don't want to repeat what is kind of in our interviews already. I'm sure you guys have looked at that, but I wanted to take this chance to kind of go over the things that they showed us that we didn't fit in the interview. But first, a little background information. So let's go over the story really quickly. Basically, the story takes place in two different time periods. It takes place during two Cold Wars. As you remember, the first Cold War was set in the 80s, and that's where this game starts. Now, the big question after the first Black Ops was, is Frank Woods alive? A grenade went off. They never really told you whether he survived or not. Well, he did, and he has actually returned for Black Ops 2 to tell the story through his eyes. And you guys have probably seen him in the trailer already. He's looking a whole lot older than he did in the first game. But he actually serves as the bridge between the two time periods in this game, along with the new villain. So, first thing they told us was the majority of the game is set in 2025 during the Cold War II. And what happens to create the second Cold War are these things called rare earth minerals. Now, I didn't know anything about rare earth minerals, but they started showing us some clips from CNN and other news services. It actually is a legitimate story in the news right now. And basically what it is are these minerals that only China is mining right now. And those minerals are very important because they go into pretty much all technology. Cell phones, laptops, tablets, etc. But most importantly, it also goes into military technology like drones and robots and things like that. And so in this sort of plausible future, they believe that the wars are going to happen based upon these minerals. So you're eventually introduced to the new villain. His name is Raul Mendez. He also spans both time periods. He was actually created by the guy who created Heath Ledger's Joker from Batman. So I think he has a pretty good pedigree there as far as creating a believable villain that you actually care about a little bit. And that was really the trick here. They actually compared it to Tony Soprano from The Sopranos. They're saying, you know, Tony is this guy that you actually kind of like, but then ultimately he does things that are just so reprehensible that you can't support him. But there's still kind of this empathy that you have for the villain, and that's what they're going for with Raul Mendez. Now, the Cold War II basically happens when Raul decides to take over all the drones that America has. So he takes over the drones, he somehow hacks into the computer system and starts attacking major U.S. cities. And so the first demo they showed us was in Los Angeles. He's taken over the drones. You're actually trying to get the president out of Los Angeles safely. You're traveling down the 110 into downtown L.A., and all hell breaks loose. So the story sounds cool, but probably the biggest element of it is that it is now a branching story. There are decisions that you make throughout the course of the game, and it's not like this prompt pops up like you would see in RPGs and it says, kill the guy, let the guy live. It all happens organically throughout the game. The decisions that you make will shape how the story goes. It will also shape how Raul Mendez, how his plans actually succeed or fail. The cool thing is at the end of the game, it will tell you the mistakes that you made or the decisions that you made, how they ultimately affected the outcome of the game. And then, sort of to go along with that, there is also sort of 360-degree gameplay in this game. And you know, in most Call of Duty games, you're used to kind of going down that cattle chute. It keeps shoving you forward. There will be sections of the game that are like that, but the biggest change to the gameplay is easily these levels called Strike Force levels. And basically what they are, they're completely free-roaming levels. You can tackle them however you want. You can play as a soldier, and they made a point to say, look, if you want to play this game like the old Call of Duties, you can totally do that. You can just stay in the perspective of one soldier, and you can fight through each one of these Strike Force battles. But if you're a little more adventurous, you can technically go into a helicopter to a commander view where you can see the whole battlefield and all your units, and you can warp immediately and instantly down to any of the units, any of the gadgets, any of the robots, and take full control of them. We actually did not get to play it ourselves. We watched them play it, trusting them that they're not faking the whole thing. It looked completely seamless and very quick. Really cool to kind of have that bird's eye view of the battlefield, see where some of you guys are getting beat up over here maybe, jump down into a drone, fly around to where they're getting lit up, light up a couple enemies, swap down maybe to one of the infantry guys, scope things out. It's completely freeform in how you tackle it, and definitely something I've never seen in a Call of Duty game before. What happens to get the missions is you're kind of presented with 3 options. They'll say, okay, these 3 territories are all under duress. Which one do you want to go and try to defend? So you have a choice in which ones you want to tackle. Now, keep in mind that while you're tackling one of them, those other 2 are sort of still being fought over. So as you go through these strike force missions, basically how it all works out is based upon your skill. If your teammates die in this game, they die. They're gone. You can replay the strike force missions, but that doesn't mean you're going to get your guys back. So there are major consequences to how you play this game. Of course, with the idea of they want you to play it multiple times, because that's been kind of the knock on the Call of Duty franchise is after you play something once, there's really no incentive to go back and play it again. And in conjunction with the fact that they tell you at the end what you did right or wrong that could have affected the outcome, it actually motivates you to go back and play some of these again.
They figured it out.
And then one final note on the story, female characters are going to play a much more prevalent role in this. If you think back to all the prior Call of Duties, can you remember even like a single woman in these games? There really haven't been many. So they actually showed us some of the facial mocap that they've been doing, and the example that they showed us was a woman. So look forward to that. Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the gameplay. Now, obviously, since most of this game takes place in the near future, there's a lot of technology in this game that you're not used to seeing in games like this. Now, most importantly, with the Strike Force levels, you have full 360-degree sandbox gameplay. And sort of their idea was, look, it needs to be accessible still, but it also has to have depth. So basically what they've done is they've tried to create this plausible reality. They've looked at technology that exists today, and they've tried to figure out and extrapolate how that technology will impact things 12, 13 years from now. If you think back to the internet and how slow it was just 12 years ago and how quickly it is now, you can see how fast this technology can sort of advance. So one of the things they showed us was a scope that reminded me a lot of the Far Sight from Perfect Dark. Basically, you can see through walls, huge chunks of concrete, so campers beware. I think that's how they put it, actually. They didn't talk about how that's going to play into the multiplayer, but in the campaign, you have this crazy rifle you can see through concrete, but you also have to have a way to shoot through the concrete. So apparently there's some new technology that uses electrons for increased bullet penetration. And so while you're using this gun, it's actually a sniper rifle, the longer you hold in the trigger, the more the gun charges up, and that increases the penetration of the weapon. Now, another thing they showed us was jet play. You probably remember some of the jet sections from Battlefield 3. Ultimately, all you did there was fire the guns. Now, in this, that's not the case. You actually jump into a jet. You're controlling the jet flying through the city while you're also controlling the guns. And they said it was done in a very Call of Duty way. It's not a simulation. You're not going to have to like practice your flight sim skills to try to get through it. But at the same time, it was pretty cool to see that you have the freedom of controlling the jet while firing as well, of course with the aid of multi-lock weapons. But probably the biggest gameplay element that everyone is freaking out over from the first trailer are the horses. They actually showed us some mocap footage of a horse in the mocap studio. The poor thing had the ping pong balls all over it. They were trying to get it to jump over objects, but they actually said that mocapping a horse is one of the most difficult things they've ever had to do, and animating them by hand would be almost impossible to make it look realistic. So now you're asking, how do they play into the game? Well, if you think about it, in the future when you have all this technology, and most of that technology is designed to zap other technology, what is the one thing that would be unaffected by that type of technology? And that is an organic being like us or like animals. So basically, using horses to get around in this game is a way to avoid sort of the EMP effects of a lot of the technology that's going to be in the game. So it's funny how things have come full circle and now man is relying once again on horses for their primary transportation. And then the final gameplay element is controlling all the gadgetry and the robots/machinery in the game. Again, we didn't get to play it. We watched somebody else play it. But in the Strike Force levels, it looked like it was very intuitive, jumping in the claws, which you probably saw in the trailer. They're those kind of four-legged robots with the huge chain guns on them and the rocket launchers on them. It looked very simple, very easy. Of course, it goes into that sort of first-person view, so you get the whole view of the cockpit. The flying drones look easy to fight with as well. It was pretty cool to watch them kind of turn a corner with that drone and watch the enemies recognize it and kind of run away. But I think the most important thing to remember about the gameplay is while it seems like there's a lot of new stuff added, they've been very careful to try and make sure that it's very user-friendly and that it feels like a Call of Duty game and not some rigid military sim. So I have to admit that seeing this game 2 months ago represents one of the most difficult secrets I've ever had to keep, and mainly because of how much the game has changed. People have been calling this game the Madden of shooters. It's the same game every year. It's reskinned. Well, finally, they have listened to you guys. I mean, this is really turning the series on its head. And while I want to, we're going to wait to pass judgment. Obviously, we've only seen somebody play the game so far. Based upon their design docs, the stuff that we were shown, it looks like it's about to flip the series completely on its head. So, everyone's waited for this for a long time. Here it comes. Hopefully we'll finally get our hands on time at E3, and we'll report back then.